Check one. Check. That's one.
Thanks so much. Yeah.
You guys want the police agent? ahead.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Appreciate everyone coming in tonight. We also have a virtual option, so it sounds like we've got a few folks online as well. Let me hit this so everybody can hear me. How's that, Paul? Is that better? Great. So again, thank you for everyone joining us online as well. My name is Todd Evans. I'm the Deputy City Manager. So in that role, I've got the Public Works departments that are under me, which includes our Streets Department, our Planning Department, our Engineer Department, our Facilities Department. So those operations are under me, so I can very easily answer any of those questions. Anything outside of that, I can't, because I may not have firsthand knowledge of that. So what I'd like to do is introduce some of our folks that we've got here with us staff-wise that can answer any questions for you. We are going to have a Streets Department update in our last town hall a couple of weeks ago. Bob McDonald, who's our Transportation Director, Bob was here. Sadly, his 93-year-old father broke his femur late last week, so Bob got on the plane and is back in New Jersey helping his father. So Bob's not going to be with us tonight. I'll go ahead and cover his piece. We do have Troy Johnson, who is our city attorney, that is here to answer any legal questions. We've got John Trilch, who can answer any finance type questions that we might need tonight. Online from PPRTA, confirm for me, Paul, we've got Rick Sonnenberg on for PPRTA.
Yep.
Okay, and then they've also got Jim, who is their chairperson for their Citizens Advisory Committee. It looks like we may not. If he does jump on and we have any questions for him as well, let us know, Troy.
Yep.
So the way we're going to do this tonight is we're going to go through a short agenda for you. It's about the same as what we did last meeting for the town hall. Troy is going to handle any of the virtual questions that we've got coming in online. We have done some virtual meetings in the past and it does work well. So just to let everyone know online that when you do submit a question, Troy is going to read that question verbatim for everyone here, and then we'll give the best answers that we can. So Troy, do you have anything to cover online wise?
Yeah, I think when Todd is going to go through his thing, and if you have questions, don't be afraid to just put them in the chat and I'll read them so you don't forget them. We don't want you to forget the questions. And then when it's the Q&A time, we'll make sure not to miss them. So if you got questions, just throw them in the chat and we'll make sure to address them.
Great, great. And for those that are here, what we'll do is we'll take a question from folks here in person, then we'll take one online and we'll just keep switching off and until we get everybody's questions answered to the best of our ability. So John, if you don't have anything, Paul, we'll go ahead and get started on the agenda. In our agenda tonight, we're just going to give a very short Fountain Streets Department update. Let everyone know the status of what's going on with that department. What is PPRTA? The PPRTA boundaries, and we've got a map. We were talking about that earlier. So on that map, we're going to be able to see what is currently paying into PPRTA and what future commercial developments in the city and around the borders of the city will future pay into PPRTA. And at this point, we don't have any of those funds coming back into the city. We will talk about PPRTA funding as a whole. What percentages they utilize that funding for? And those percentages would be the same for us as those are in the PPRTA bylaws and cannot be changed. Then we'll go into a question and answer. So I would just ask everyone, just save your questions, write them down if you would, and there's going to be plenty of time. This is only going to take me probably 15 minutes to go through the agenda, and then we will jump right into a traditional Q&A for our town hall. So go ahead, Paul. Okay, the Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority is a collaborative effort among 6 regional governments to improve and maintain roads and support public transit. The members of PPRTA currently are the cities of Colorado Springs, Manitou Springs, El Paso County, and the towns of Green Mountain Falls, Brema, and Callahan. PPRTA is funded through the optimization of sales/use tax collections. This tax is 1% on all procurements which Fountain residents already pay each time they make a purchase outside of Fountain city limits or in PPRTA boundaries already within the city. Now, that doesn't include groceries, medicines, those type of purchases. It's outside of those purchases where this does apply. So when folks ask, I get a lot of questions. If I go up to Colorado Springs or if I go into Fountain Valley and shop at the Big R, is that in the PPRTA? Yes, it is. So yes, so it's very difficult for us to say, we'll have questions of how much is this going to cost each resident in the city of Fountain. Unlike a mill levy, it's very hard for us to know how much you all go up and spend in Colorado Springs or in the Fountain Valley. It's impossible. When we look at these things and the best kind of estimate that we could get, somewhere between $60 and $100 a year, probably, depending on people's purchases. Larger purchases like the car, of course, it's gonna be more for that. Smaller purchases, it's basically 1 cent on the dollar, whether it be a large purchase or a small purchase. So it varies greatly. It just depends on a person's spending habits. Both here, which is in PPRTA, our areas, Fountain Valley and Colorado Springs. Go ahead, Paul. So Paul, if you could do me a favor, when we get into this map, I added a new map on here that's updated from GIS. So go to the one that I completed today. It's in presentations, and then we'll show the new map that we've got GIS completed today. In your presentations, go to that one. Everything is the same except the map. There we go. So basically, when you look at this map, last time they gave this, folks had a lot of questions about where future commercial developments were and how that impacts the money that's going out but not coming back to Fountain. So when you look at this up top, you can see the black dot, and that's 99 commercial acres, and that's considered South Academy Highlands. So think about the Walmart and Sam's Club that is at South Academy, directly across from High Speed Community College, or we're State College now, aren't we? High Speed State College, my bad. So that right now currently sits in PPRTA. The city had an effort and a separate effort by Walmart and Sam's Club to pull that out of PPRTA back around 2015, failed in the courts. So what that did legally, that confirmed anything that's in the PPRTA boundaries can never come out. So when you look at that and you look at the red dots, and as we come down kind of right to left, come on the other side right there, those are the Almagre on the right and the Norwood Mesa Ridge projects on the left. So between those, you've got 24 and 20, so you've got 44 acres right at the corner of Mesa Ridge Parkway and Mark Shuffle. That is in PPRTA boundary. So Almagre is currently moving forward with 14 of those commercial acres. So as that comes online, and depending on what happens with this initiative, that funding would go to PPRTA. As you work your way back down, you can see the different commercial areas. We were talking earlier, the 20 acres that sits at the corner of Lake and Squirrel Creek. That's Gilbert's Tree Service property, which you can see the for sale sign out there. That would have that same impact. The 80 commercial acres, we added that just because it is right on our borders. That currently sits in the county. That is not in the city limits, but the impact would be the same. The 15 go up to the left, Paul, where the 15 commercial acres are right here. That is currently within PPRTA, and that is Duckwood. So think about where we have the roundabout at Duckwood, right there on either side of Duckwood. Those are two commercial pieces equating to 15 acres that would be paid into PPRTA as well. So when you look at that, and that map Sam is putting up on our website so folks can take a look at that. We want to make sure folks understood not only, and it's estimated right now that the 99 commercial acres is putting from the city of Fountain about $1.2 million that's not coming back to the city. We can all do the math of those other 100, and I think that's about 185 acres down below, somewhere in there. That going to PPRTA, depending on what occurs, not coming back, it's going to be millions and millions of dollars. Go ahead, Paul. We can pull these back up if you have questions later on. Below is the chart from PPRTA's annual report for 2023. Shows where the funding went in 2022 and the amounts for each entity that were involved. Those are based off of the population of each of their 6 members. As you come down, you can see that the PPRTA's revenue, 55% is devoted to capital projects, 35% goes to maintenance, and 10% is on the transit needs. This election in November is just for that maintenance piece. Depending on the results, then we would put together a complete capital, as we talked about earlier, so everyone could see exactly what those capital projects would be, and that would have to be approved as well. So we just put a couple of past projects financed by PPRTA in the Fountain Valley, so you can go through those. Go ahead, Paul. So when you look at the finance and the budget, this basically shows the total amount for PPRTA in their budget and where it was spent. So it gives you an idea of what's coming in and what's being put out in transportation. And again, I want to emphasize something. This is a legal entity. So the 6 members don't have a choice of where that money's going to go. It has to go to those. So we've had some folks say, well, would the city use it somewhere else? Would you take our current maintenance budget, which when you talk about our streets department, we've got 8 individuals in our streets department right now that work on our roads. Our maintenance budget for the city right now averages about 600,000 from the Moving Fountain Forward initiative. That's all spent on resurfacing roads in the city. And then another 150,000 that comes from the general fund into maintenance of the roads as well. So we've got 110 miles of roads in the city of Fountain, and every year we spend 750,000 on those 110 miles of road. To give you a comparison, when a road is rebuilt, which many of our roads need a complete rebuild, that is where you take the asphalt up. You have to dig down and completely put base underneath or replace base that wasn't done when they were originally built. That costs $1.2 million a mile. We've got 110 miles. But that tells you the expense of what it's going to cost to rebuild a lot of the roads that we've got. Go ahead, Paul. So anticipated PPRTA funding based off the PPRTA financial ingredients. It is estimated by both PPRTA staff and Fountain staff utilizing 2020 revenue information. The following estimated return for Fountain's population of 30,000 would have been approximately 2 million plus for maintenance needs and approximately 3 million plus for capital projects. It's impossible to say an exact number, again, because it's based off of sales tax. We don't know who and how much people are going to spend, but that is what both PPRTA finance folks and our finance folks came up. It is estimated by Fountain Finance Department that in the South Academy Highlands area alone, we are losing 1.2 million plus to PPRTA projects that are outside of Fountain city limits. At this time, we really have no other way of determining what other amounts of tax money is lost for road funding that is going into El Paso County or Colorado Springs for PPRTA projects, because we really don't know how much folks spend in Colorado Springs, the county, Fountain Valley, and things like that. There's no way we can capture that. Go ahead, Paul. So we did 2 surveys, and these weren't internal surveys. We didn't have any part of this. We hired an outside company that comes in and does these surveys. So in 2022, you can see that 58% on the survey stated that they would approve us moving forward with a PPRTA question. This year in 2023, you can see that that was 55% approved that we would move forward with a question. So I want to make sure everyone understands, we've tried several things in the city to help our roads, to assist in the damage to our roads. We had a full house here when we did a single hauler initiative and possibly limiting the haulers to our city. We were going to do one north of the city, or the north side of the city, one on the south side. So 2 different companies. We got bids from them. It showed it would lower people's garbage rates between $9 and $11 a month, which is a pretty big when you add it up over the year. We did internal surveys and we only got about 50-50, less than 50, so we didn't move forward with that. There was an initiative attempted back in 2019, 2020 on when our capital portion of Moving Fountain Forward sunsetted on renewing that and bringing that back. So it's our jobs to look at the options out there and then present those options to the public and see what the public would like to do. They're the individuals that on some roads you drive in Fountain, the base is in good shape, the roads are in decent shape. Out of that $750,000, we spend the vast majority of that on our main arterials. So our main arterials aren't in too bad a shape. But when you get in the neighborhoods and you get some main arterials, you drive down Cross Creek and it feels like you're hitting speed bumps every 20 feet on Cross Creek. And that's not intended to do that. That's just how wide the gaps in Cross Creek because the base and the clay underneath it are moving. So Cross Creek would be a rebuild. So basically it's the folks that live on those roads that we have to represent as well and say, hey, we're going to do everything we can to help fix your roads. Do I know that it impacts their property values on every one of those roads? It does. 100% it does. And it's not at the numbers we're talking about for the tax. It's thousands of dollars that people are losing on their property values in some roads and some neighborhoods. And they call Bob, they call myself, and they help us do something. That was $750,000. And when we talk about $5 million that we made it back in PPRTA, I know the budgets for public safety very well. We'd have to cut half our police department, half our fire department, cut our parks, You can take my job all day long and it's not going to fix, but that far of Warner Road to resurface. We need something to be able to have options to help some of these folks in different neighborhoods. So that's what we were, the community came back and told us. Therefore, we're moving forward and basically just presenting the information on if the city needs this and why. Go ahead, Paul. Okay, that was quick. That was 15 minutes. Dean, you're gonna get the first question.
It's not a question, it's a clarification, and because people don't understand taxing.
Sure.
So you said when you go buy a car,
Mhm.
cars are not taxed the same as a television.
Mhm.
So if you go buy a car, you can go up to Highlands Ranch and buy a Rolls Royce, and you're taxed at today's Fountain tax rate, which is 7.53.
Okay.
You don't pay. So cars are taxed where you live, not where you purchase.
Correct.
Where a television is taxed where you
Purchase.
purchase. So just a clarification, because a lot of people don't understand that.
You must be in the car business.
I know some people,
Every time the cars come up, I learn. Appreciate it.
so that's all that was, clarification.
Perfect. Oh,
So our budget is different. Because don't we approve the city budget in October? And then this is voted on in November. And then this is kind of like a different budget as well. So talk a little bit about like the difference between the two or?
question, great question. So we do 2-year budgeting cycles with the city, but we do 1-year updates on our budget cycles. So this year we're on a 1-year update for next year's budget. But one of the rules of PPRTA, one of the bylaws that we can't change is we cannot reduce, even if this is successful in November. As a city, we're not allowed to reduce that 750,000 that we currently spend on it. And that's the way, and I think it was whoever put that language in 20+ years ago. It's a very smart way to do it so that folks couldn't take it and use it somewhere else. So our 750,000, even if this passes, that has to remain the same in the future. So whatever we would get back, let's say it's if it was 5.3 million with the maintenance and the capital combined together, our 700,000 would make it 6 million that we would have to spend on roads. Does that make sense? So really, our budget is not going to go down in future years. We will just get the additional funding that we will be able to put through.
I think maybe if I could expand.
Sure.
Maybe what your question is. So this tax would be implemented and then we would join the RTA and that tax would go to the RTA. And then the RTA would then run their calculation and send money to the members based upon that calculation. And then upon receiving it, we would work it into our budget to be used on those specific purposes. So that's kind of the flow of money is how I understood your question.
Yeah.
Does that help?
That's why we got it here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've got Rick online. Remember, we can go to Rick as well. He might be the best.
Recently, I guess it's not that recent, a few years ago, you all probably noticed that you started paying a tax for online purchases, for a lot of online purchases. And so the 1% would be implemented on most of those purchases. If you bought a TV online versus in person at Walmart, you'd pay the same 1%.
I'll go back to that map too. That brings up a good point, Jennifer. We've had complaint from some home-based businesses that are in the city of Fountain. But as you can see online, if you would just kind of hover for me over here, see some of these blue areas? That again is city limits within PPRTA. So this would kind of be the link across the street, kind of countryside, Darnielle area. That's already in PPRTA. So some of those home businesses are already paying that, nothing coming back as well. So anywhere you see this blue, even though there's no commercial pieces in there, it is impacting some of those home-based businesses who are already paying the PPRTA. We get complaints on that and want us to pull them out of there, but we have no say-so on that. That's PPRTA dollars. Yeah. Do we have anything online, Troy?
No questions online.
Okay, huh?
How do portions of the city of Fountain get into the obligation with the PPRTA and not all of it? And so if there are portions that are paying into it, but we're not reaping the benefit of them paying into it, how did that happen?
Let me answer this one, yeah. So really how it broke down was when the RTA was created, so I think in about 2008, the boundaries were created and El Paso County decided to join the RTA. So anything at that time in El Paso County was in the RTA. And dark blue
And the dark blue. Yeah.
was in the county in 2008. And in the meantime, since 2008, everything in the dark blue has since been annexed into the city. And so that court case that Todd was talking about ruled that just because we annexed, we couldn't change the RTA's boundary. And so those places that were in the county, now in the city, still have to pay the tax.
Okay,
And if we annex anything else.
Right.
We
And
got-
any future annexations.
We've got individual homeowners that are down here in Mount Pueblo, this area that are requesting this. They need water. We've
so,
got folks on Stroke Creek, but anything we annex in the county, they're already in PPRTA.
so that's kind of like the same thing for us businesses that are in the old end. But if we were to do anything, we lose the grandfather clause and we have to bring everything up to date. Same kind of
Same time.
idea?
Yeah. Yeah.
So then what's considered El Paso County? Because I thought we fall under that umbrella as a whole.
Yeah, so it's, and when I say El Paso County, I kind of mean everything in unincorporated El Paso County. So,
Security wise.
yep, Security Whitefield, really everything
Valley.
in the county that's not already within a city. And realistically, we're the only city in the region that has not joined.
Yes.
So the only thing really, the entirety of El Paso County, except for the city limits as defined in 2008, are already within the RTA.
And Connie, the city of Colorado Springs comes all the way, this is Fontaine. So the city of Colorado Springs comes all the way down to Fontaine, and this is part of Van Lewis Ranch. And as you can see, it's all in PPRTA. Yes.
So I just wanted to point out, so when Pikes Peak Rural Transportation Authority was founded.
Yes, sir.
And Fountain did not join it, that was when we put in our own 1% or whatever it was.
Moving from forward.
Right, got put in, and so that's why we didn't join it, because Fountain said, well, we know how to spend money better than you do, but our trains still blow orange.
Correct. We got one left. One left.
So there's not really a tax increase. We're already paying that. It's just gonna go toward the road and they're gonna match actually more than the 750 million or thousand or
So Connie, there will be a tax increase for all the areas in like blue here. These areas that aren't already in PPRTA. Is it like, so think of Safeway, okay? Safeway is a major up on the hill. That's a major commercial area, right?
Right.
Right now, you don't pay the 1% because look, it's not in the PPRTA boundary. If this passes, then you would pay the 1%,
okay.
right?
Except not on groceries, just to be
Not
clear.
in groceries. I use Safeway just to know, okay, not in groceries. Yeah.
Lowe's
Yeah.
is
Lowe's would be a good
Lowe's
example.
you would pay, that's a great example. Yeah, I'm gonna use Lowe's next time as an example. That's a good example. Odell. Okay. Kick that over to John.
Yeah, we do have that.
The question was, how many people responded on the survey?
To the survey.
Yeah, it's around 700. I'll get you the exact number right now.
Actually, while he's pulling that up, I've got a comment from Councilman Rick online that he just wanted to remind everyone that we will likely have a Tabor refund of 300,000 at the end of the year. Our general fund money will not significantly increase if more businesses come to Fountain. Definitely not in the range of 5 to 6 million per year.
741 registered voters.
Okay, second question. It looked like 3% fewer respondents were in favor of joining RTA this year than last year.
Yeah.
Any idea why that is?
You know, I think we've got our thoughts on it. I mean, one of my thoughts is just the general economic status or situation in the country as a whole. And then also last year, we had a public safety initiative that was passed last year. So I think the combination of those two, I mean, that could be that 3%. Gentleman, Troy, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, if I were to guess, that would be the reason, but
Well, you mentioned at a meeting a couple months ago that the numbers turning out for general and specific special elections affected, and they thought maybe they were talking a couple months ago about that had an impact on the
Yeah.
percentage.
Yeah, that always does as well. John, through the survey, we learned a lot about that from the Magellan, who does this all over the state.
And we asked, in the question that Magellan did, it kind of asked voters as well about, it informed them about both ballot initiatives and whether or not one on its own would pass, or if they did both at the same time, whether it would pass. So they did try to get some data back on voters on how they felt about the mill levy, public safety ballot initiative and this one and the kind of the timing. So, and it did show that if you did them both, there was, a likelihood that it would pass.
And Rick, you being online at this point, Rick, I want to make sure I touch base with you frequently. Is there anything you'd like to add, Rick? Paul can unmute you if you unmute on your end. Do you have anything to add, Rick? And this is the director of PPRTA, Rick Sonnenberg.
Looks like we're having difficulty unmuting him for some reason.
Is that on your end, Paul, or is it?
I'm not sure if it's on our end or if it's on Microsoft's.
So work on that, Paul, if you would, and we'll have you.
So this will hit the ballot in November, but it really doesn't take effect for another year, right? Because they need to build up the pot a little bit.
That's a great question for Rick. And what he answered last time is we would start seeing that maintenance in 2024.
Okay.
But I'll let him address that. When he
Well, and I think I know that the tax, if everything goes to plan, and it passes, and then PPRTA would have to formally vote us in after it passes, right? So there's dominoes that have to take place, but along the path would be an implementation of a January, the tax would begin in January. Department of Revenue, just right, well, the 1% would be starting to get collected.
Correct.
So have we been voted in, or we have gone to them and said, will you accept us, that that's official?
That's so provisionally. So the dominoes that as they go, the member governments have voted to approve us kind of conditionally on the condition if it passes. Then they'd have to do it formally to formally vote us in by January.
On their end, yes. And we had council members, so I went to a couple, Scotland, I think to almost all. So we went to answer any questions and those, it wasn't extensive, but all the members have voted.
So then, until we get funds from them, we stay on our budget of the 750,000. And so then we work with that for the year until we get on them. And then they make an estimate of how much we have taken in taxes, or in that year we will have already, and then they match whatever we made.
All right, do you have Rick up yet? Okay, we got Rick. Rick, did you hear that? Were you able to hear that question, Rick? Can you answer that?
If I could get it again, please.
Okay, hold on. I've got the microphone. 1 second, Connie, good luck.
I don't remember how I said it. I think I was just wanting to know, so we vote on it and then we have a year for the monies to collect, and then based on what we collect, then you match us dollar per dollar, or how does it work?
Okay, you would, the voters in Fountain would vote this November. If it passes, then the Department of Revenue, Colorado Department of Revenue, would begin collecting the 1 cent sales tax in the city of Fountain area that's where it's not already being collected, meaning the light blue instead of the dark blue. And that money would start coming to us immediately from Department of Revenue, and we would put that into your budget. In fact, if it's voted on in November, and approved, we would have to modify our December budget to add your maintenance money to be effective January 1st. So we'd have to modify our October, November draft budget for a final vote by our board at its December meeting when we finalize the budget, and that would include your maintenance money to start January. So you get the maintenance right away, January of 2024. Then in November of 2024, the PPRTA board would authorize going to all the PPRTA voters all existing PPRTA voters plus the new Fountain voters to vote on adding your capital projects list and funding. If that is approved by all the PPRTA voters, including the Fountain voters, in November of 24, then effective January of 25, you would start getting the additional 3.5 million on top of the 2.2 that we estimate you would get in 24. So then you'd be at 5.7 million capital and maintenance in 2025 and beyond, and get the inflationary effect that we all get, depending on the whole pot of money, sales tax and interest earnings. Does that answer that question? And then if it does, I wanted to clarify one other item.
Okay, yes, it does. And I have like a tail-end question, but I'll let you do yours first.
Okay, I just want to clarify that the PPRTA was originally founded by a vote in City of Colorado Springs, unincorporated El Paso County, Manitou Springs, and Green Mountain Falls. Those are their founding four that went to the voters in November of 2004. That passed by a roughly 55-45 margin and was effective January 1st of 2005. So everything that was in unincorporated El Paso County on January 1st of 2005 was in the PPRTA and subject to the PPRTA tax. So at that time, with just 2 of the 7 suburbs being in originally, Fountain, Monument, Palmer Lake, Calhoun, and Rama were not in those 5. So, but then Calhoun and Rama have since joined. So now we're down to Fountain, Monument, and Palmer Lake that are not in of the original 7 of the smaller entities. And when the city of Fountain annexed South Academy Highlands, that's when Walmart sued the PPRTA and the Colorado Department of Revenue, who sued the state to claim that that a non-member municipality could eliminate the tax on a piece of geography that was established by the voters in November of 2004, effective January 2005. And that's where the Colorado Supreme Court said no, that the voters of unincorporated El Paso County, when that geography was set, that taxing authority was set on that geography, regardless of any non-member annexation, which means Monument, Palmer Lake, at the time, Calhoun, Rama, or Fountain, any of those 5 that annexed after January 1st, 2005, could not legally eliminate the taxing authority on the unincorporated county that was a PPRTA member.
And Rick, how long have you been involved with PPRTA?
The whole 18, all but the first 4 months of the 18 and a half years of the PPRTA. The PPRTA started January 1st of 05. I started May 1st of 05.
Thank you, sir. And Connie's got one more question for you.
So Rick, out of every company or group that has joined you, have any of them wanted to back out of an obligation with you? And if so, how come?
No, if you're speaking of governmental entities, no. Did I answer your question?
No, none of the entities that are members. Do we have anybody else online, Chuck?
Well, I do have, Councilman Rick, I think wanted to make a comment. If maybe Paul, you could unmute him.
Can you unmute, Gordy?
Hey, Todd, can you hear me?
We can. Go ahead, Gordy.
Okay, Connie, you asked a question about collecting the tax money and PPRTA matching the money. I want to kind of talk about that for a minute. The money that we collect within Fountain doesn't come to the city of Fountain. What happens is all the money in all the PPRTA areas goes to one fund. Then that money gets split out based off of our percentage of the population. Okay? Based off of our percentage of the population within PPRTA, we estimate that that'll be the 2.2 million for maintenance and the 3.5 million for the capital projects. It's not Fountain's money. We get a percentage of the overall pot based on our population. And go ahead.
Does that change? Does that amount change as the city gets bigger? We've got more communities being built and more folks moving in. So probably 2025, it's going to be bigger. So does the percentage change? And then we ask for more taxes or how does that work?
This is
So
Rick. This is Rick. I can tackle that one.
go ahead.
The establishing IGA between the member governments states that we will use the allocation distribution by population based on the most recent federal census. So every 10 years, well, right now we're using the 2020. So every 10 years, of course, as you're well aware, it takes the federal government a year, 18 months, maybe 2 years to announce the new population of the federal census. But we are using the most recent federal census. So we only change the population and therefore the shares, and we take that to 4 decimal places. We only change that every 10 years.
Then if you look at the calculation, if our population increases and our amount of retail does not, we'll get a bigger percentage. But if our
Yes.
population,
Yes.
if our retail growth increases because it's a 1% on retail and our population goes down, we'd get a smaller percentage.
Yes,
So it
those
really
are the two
depends.
factors, those are two
Those are the
math
factors.
pieces that go into the formula. And I wanted to address the matching. So there's no matching. It's just everything that Department of Revenue collects from the members. They send that to us monthly, direct deposit, and then Lisa Corey, our finance manager, who's also on, and she can jump in, or we can ask her to join and unmute her. But then Lisa does the calculations and using the annual budget and the formula, and then we put your maintenance money and then eventually capital money into your PPRTA account, excuse me. And then you can either employ your vendors, and we can either pay your vendors after you authorize the invoice to send to us, or you can pay your vendors direct and ask for reimbursement. But all the money goes into your account, your PPRTA account.
Thank you, Rick. Appreciate that. And just to put a finale on the thought, I had a lot of folks ask, what the council's thought process was back in 04, 05. I can't, obviously, none of us can say that what that was, but it's important to talk about some of the neighborhoods we were talking about earlier. Heritage, Cross Creek, Cumberland, Highgate, all of those have built since then. So the numbers were very different back in 04 population wise and formula wise and what would come back. Very, very different now. If you look at our growth numbers, our big growth years were 05, 06, 07, 08. We were putting in 600-700 homes a year back then. Now last year we did 50. So that shows you it was a huge jump in those middle 2000s.
I just remember when we were 7,000 people. That's when we moved here.
Correct.
And now we're pushing over 30.
Correct. So when people say, why would the council turn down 5 million? It was, the numbers were very different way back then when the initial decisions were being made. Penny?
To what the areas that we annexed, but Supreme Court said we don't get that money.
Go back, Paul, I think 1 or 2 slides. Go back one more, go forward one, back one. Right here. It is estimated by Fountain Finance Department that in the South Academy Highlands area alone, we are losing 1.2 million plus to PPRTA projects that are outside of Fountain city limits. And that's easy to do with the Department of Revenue. We can figure out, Penny, exactly what we're losing in that area. Those other areas, it's almost impossible to figure out. So we know that's a minimum. Yeah. Connor?
Todd, can you talk a little bit about the vendors that the city currently uses and that we're being conservative because we have a certain budget now, but we may be blessed with a little bit more? So are they going to lock down the vendors that we currently have so that we're not doing like price gouging or getting out of?
So what we do is we go out for a bid for our resurfacing projects, which the maintenance would be part of that. And we're required through our financial policies to go out and get bids. So we do that at a minimum for our resurfacing projects once every 3 years. And then our large capital projects, those we would bid out as a project. So we're always going to use that competition and what's out there and who's out there. It's not always the lowest bid that we get, because we also want to get quality. So there's different criteria that we look at just to make sure that we don't do something the cheapest, but it's poor quality. And we were talking about it earlier. If you see Bob out there, Bob's out there standing on the dump trucks, measuring now the temperatures of the asphalt. He's down on his knees. He was out here last week measuring and making sure the depths were correct. He goes out when there's a new road build. Right now, I don't want to point out the developer, but we're battling with one because we're forcing them to rebuild an entire road. It was just completed 3 years ago, 4 years ago. We're going after and we're making, so we're trying to do everything different that was done back in the day.
So maybe this is off the subject, but a lot of people are wondering why we have this whole road being done all the way down to wherever. And they're like, oh, we didn't have any money in our budget for that. We'd rather have a swimming pool. So can you talk about that project?
Sure. So this is part of this is a combination of funding. So earlier this year, right in this area, we had a water main leak. So that portion of the area that's being rebuilt and resurfaced, our utilities water is going to be paying for. Then when you go down at the railroad tracks, you remember about 8 months ago when the 18-wheeler got high centered on there and we had to shut it down for a day. Well, that was coming from the high school. And when they did that, it broke all their hydraulic lines underneath, which poured all the way down Ohio. So you're not paying for that portion either. Their insurance company's paying for that portion. And that's tens of thousands of dollars. So when we do these things, it's a combination. The rest of the funds come out of moving Fountain forward. And those are decided upon by our citizen roadway focus group. We sit down with them, Bob and I do, and we go through a huge list of projects and what roads need to have what done. Now we have science behind that methodology because we've completed a pavement management study, which they drove every street in the city, and they have equipment that can scan, X-ray, and measure what's underneath the road.
Wow.
So we have a list now. So it's not kind of my roads, Troy's roads, anybody individually on RFG. And then roadway focus group, there's 2 representatives in 3 wards in the city. So we make sure that we spend the money fairly across the entire city and not just in one area. So we focus on the main arterials. That's why Ohio. This one became a focus because of school. We focus on schools, we focus on public safety, and then we make a decision based out of that. You see a lot of activity down in the Southmore. The Southmore area, we've done a lot of resurfacing, rebuilding, curb and gutter and sidewalks. Well, we get CDBG grants for that. There's only 2.5 neighborhoods in the city that are eligible for federal CDBG grants because it's based off of median income.
Oh,
So we put that money in those neighborhoods and we're rebuilding their infrastructure.
thank you.
So actually, like the Lake Ring neighborhood in Carson, if you look at the neighborhood, that neighborhood, at least since I've been in this position, has had more spent in that neighborhood than any other neighborhood in the city. I'm impressed because we spend CDBG funds. Yeah.
Cool.
So when people say that, it's not as simple as it's a big combination of
Good
things.
to hear.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You bet. Any other questions? Roy, do we have anything online?
Nothing online.
Well, I'm going to make sure that we respect everybody's time. We appreciate it. Thank you. There's been some great questions. Rick, is there anything else you or Lisa would like to say?
Not from me, thank you.
Lisa, are you good? And thank you. I apologize I didn't introduce you earlier.
Oh, that's all right. Yeah, I have nothing further unless someone has questions for me.
Okay, we appreciate both all your help. It's great to have you online so that everybody gets the answers from the experts. We appreciate that. So
No
everybody,
problem.
we appreciate. Again, everybody here knows me. If you have any questions, let me know. And if I don't do it, I'm gonna do exactly what we did in this meeting. I'm gonna PR it over to Troy. I can get a hold of Rick and get those answers for you. We haven't had large crowds in this. Last time we had one person that was very against it at the beginning of the meeting. And at the end of the meeting, he said, we're not handling this, but he said they could put a sign in my yard. So we're happy just to give everybody the opportunities to come. Yes, it was. So we like to give everybody the opportunities to come. One thing that really just, having fought this battle, and when we get the Link road grants put in place, we will have brought in with the Link and Squirrel Creek project with the Indiana, which is starting this month. That is being built. That'll be one more quiet zone, and we only lack one in Ohio.
Well, they don't bother me, that's just, help to rub it in.
One more. One more.
They still pull their.
Like, they can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I like the training.
So once we get those done, we've gotten so many grants in the city. We will have gotten over 20 million in grant projects in the last 5 years. But even with all the grants coming in, you can't rebuild infrastructure on grants, but we're still trying. So it's great to have an opportunity, Q&A, and ask everybody. We'll keep battling. We will keep battling to make sure the developers do it right. Another good example, they're rebuilding Mesa over at Syracuse, where the apartments are going in, and the King Foods are gonna go in there. They basically had to go in and rebuild that road twice, because Ben and Bob were out there, Ben, our city engineer. And they were doing this because of the damage that was done by the rainstorms. They had to go back in and redo a lot of that base because it had washed away. So we're out there
So
fighting.
do you have another meeting for Q and As for other people?
If we're requested to, sure.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I just feel like,
But you have to remember, once the council, once they approve this second reading, if that happens next week, then we as a staff have to go, as Troy says, pencil down, and we're not allowed to talk about anything at that point.
So that'll be, that's kind of the next planned phase of the process is, the city council will hear, kind of final reading of the ballot language itself on the 22nd. So next Tuesday, not tomorrow, but the Tuesday after. And if they decide to approve it, then that gets certified and that will be on the ballot come November. And at that point, up until now, we've been just evaluating this as an idea to see if it's what the council wants to do, put it on the ballot. And if and when they decide to do that, that's kind of, the end of the city's role, other than really answering questions and getting information out about the things kind of we're talking about tonight.
Educating.
So, it's not really taking a position, but that is, and so that'll just kind of go to the voters.
Mhm.
And we'll see at that point. So.
so even though we've been passionate and passionate for so long now, like a month and a half.
It's like 2 years.
Okay, well, for me, I feel like it's been just like consistent, like. I really haven't heard anything negative coming out of it, other than people don't like increased taxes. So. Where are the negatives? Like, what can we lose? What's the downfall of it? Nobody has really said, like, this is possible.
A higher tax rate. I mean, that's the. Sure, love to have you come.
And that's exactly what people are gonna focus on. People are gonna focus on it because it does go to a ballot and talks to a lot of workers, neighbors, et cetera, who say exactly the same thing. As soon as I mention they are gonna increase their sales tax by 1%, they roll their eyes, no, I don't wanna do this, my taxes are too high, et cetera. So regardless of the long-term benefits that we reap out of it, and the fact that we're already losing out on $1.2 million, at a minimum, the focus is going to be, oh, you're taxing. So that's the name.
And so, we still are working on getting one over at the DFAC,
Yeah.
but not in substitution of anything.
Right.
That's a separate effort. Shouldn't be losing anything.
Well,
with
the
that.
problem we have here is a lot of our council members don't pay taxes. I'm not saying anybody's name in particular, but it may sometime. Sure.
Well, thank you all. We appreciate everybody coming. Thank you, sir. You've come to, I think this is your third meeting.
Yeah.
We appreciate you. Yeah, thank you
And
all.
just one more point too, like all of this information is on our website. It's been up there for a while now. So the packet that Todd went over here with the information all about PPRTA and all the city information is there. The survey results, including all of the comments made by citizens, all those 741 citizens, you can pour through those and read all the pluses and minuses. That's all there. If council decides to move forward next Tuesday, we're gonna actually package all that into a separate web page that we'll go to that have additional links for PPRTA. So even though we have this kind of pencils down thing, there's gonna be plenty of information on the website that anyone can go in there and take a look at.
The downside of that though, is that the number of people that do not know.
Yeah.
Do not know. You mentioned
No, we're gonna keep putting it on Facebook. Please go to the
Yeah,
website.
I mean,
Go to the
that
website.
gets done too. I mean, the city
People
has
sit down on
the
the-
resources it has and the venues it has to put out information.
This got a little covers.
what is PSAC?
The Teen Flesh Shower Center, directly across from the new middle school. If you've never been there,
I've never been.
the YMCA's put about 2.6 million, I think, into it recently. And if you walk through, I don't know if you guys have been over there, it's beautiful.
Oh, wait, no, across from the middle school?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. No, the YMCA.
Yes.
Yeah.
On
yeah.
Stanford,
No,
middle school?
so the middle schools are going Alabama. So take a left on Alabama, right, go down here to the left, and it's right on the left-hand side. Go down, and they give special rates for Fountain residents that are, yeah, they have a little block. I know I'm a member. The rates are good.
But like really good, because we have a lot of like, low income children who just need somewhere to go play.
And they have programs.
Okay.
If you ever watch it, you know, I'll manage it.
Yeah.
She'll be a mentor.
Yeah,
Just let me
I
know.
want to.
I'm glad you opened Pandora's box.
Come on, the YMCA, they're good.
And I'm not talking about the school YMCA.
Go ahead.
So we have a special metropolitan district in the city of Fountain.
Several.
Well, we have a special one that part of their getting, and this is for those people, not you, but part of their getting granted their metropolitan district was they were going to build us a swimming pool. And if you lived in the metropolitan district, you pay X dollars. If you lived in the city of Fountain, you pay X plus. And if you lived outside the city, you pay X plus plus. And those people up there let that contractor out of that after they gave him that special tax district.
Are you thinking of it, Tom?
No.
Oh, okay.
I'm thinking of one of my city that has a rotary waterfall that doesn't work. I know,
Yeah.
that's like, it's Pandora's box when you go down this swimming pool. I mean, there was a gentleman that raised funds years ago when we were both young and gave it to the city of Fountain for a pool, and it went in somebody's pocket. And they disappeared. We were both young then.
I know, but this is why people want to vote for higher taxes, because there's no trust.
Well, the big reason I want everybody to know, as a staff for us, when we see good, something that will benefit the city, we don't go, okay, we prioritize this over this or this over this. We have efforts to try to get anything we can. Love to do that, right? And one of the things that even with the Y makes sense is the Y will staff it, then we don't have to pay additional funding for employees. Because
Well,
that's
we
the money
shouldn't
goes
have
with the
to.
pools.
We should have the community volunteering because this is for the community.
Isn't she? Connie, we'll talk to volunteers. I'll say offline. Thank you, everybody. Have a good time. Appreciate everybody coming. Thank you.
That's you. I remember being like that.
You know, I believe